And without further ado, I'm just going to get started here. So the author says, Kitabul Salah, the book of prayer. You know that Kitab is, in this context, a major segment of a larger book. So Kitab usually means book. And we don't mean here just one book that has its front and back covers and a spine. We mean here a major segment of a book, of a larger book, a broader book. So the broader book is going to be a book of fiqh. And within the book of fiqh, which is jurisprudence, yani rules, you're going to have the book of purification, the book of prayer, the book of zakah, the book of fasting, the book of hajj, etc., the book of dealings, book of marriage, etc., etc., etc. The author says, linguistically, salah or salat, you can say either way, but if you stop, then saying it with the H is better. Salah, that's the language of the Quran. Salah. But you can say salat, that's valid. You can even say salat, salat, as some people say. Linguistically, this word means dua, meaning, you know, the Arabs, they knew Arabic before Prophet Muhammad came, alayhi salatu wassalam. So the word salah is not foreign to them in their language. They know this word. But before Prophet Muhammad came, they didn't know what we mean by it. So what did they understand from it? They understood from it dua. Salah means in the Arabic language dua, supplication, or even supplication for goodness in particular. Like in Surah Tawbah, Allah commanded the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَصَلِّ عَلَيْهِمْ, pray for them, O Muhammad, supplicate for them, those who pay the zakah. And that's what it means when we make salah on the Prophet. We are praying for him, supplicating for him. As-salatu ala nabi is supplication or prayer for the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So that's what salah means linguistically. In the sacred law, though, so religiously, it is a series of statements and actions initiated by the takbir, yani the takbir with an intention. Doesn't mention the intention here because the intention is inward. Takbir is outward, so that's what appears. So it's initiated by, yani its first apparent action is the takbir. It's a series of statements and actions initiated by the takbir and usually concluded by the taslim. Taslim means saying the salam. Under specific conditions. And if we don't say specific, it's fine. Under conditions. And even if we don't say usually, it's fine. So you could say, prayer, according to the sacred law, is a series of statements and actions initiated by the takbir and concluded by the taslim under conditions. This includes the prostrations for thanks and recitation. Those sujud ash-shukr and sujud at-tilawa, prostrations for thanks and prostration of thanks and prostration of recitation. Those are a type of salah, and they fall under this definition. It doesn't say here, with ruku' and sujud, it's not part of the encompassing definition of salah. Encompassing definition of salah shouldn't have ruku' and sujud in it. So the prayer is a series of statements and actions initiated by the takbir and usually concluded by the taslim under conditions. So this includes the prostrations for thanks and recitation, because you're going to say Allahu Akbar with your intention to prostrate for thanks or recitation. We'll talk about that later, though, in detail. Then you're going to go down to prostration. And then when you're done, you're going to sit up and say Assalamu alaikum to end your prayer. And this includes funeral prayer. So tell me, what does the funeral prayer lack? What does funeral prayer lack? 5, 4, 3, 2.
Assalamu alaikum. The funeral prayer lacks the ruku' and sujood,
Correct.
sajdatayns.
Correct. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Funeral prayer lacks bowing and prostration. So this definition for prayer that we have shouldn't include bowing and prostration, because we want one definition that covers all prayers. A series of statements and actions initiated by the takbir and usually concluded by the taslim under specific conditions. That includes eclipse prayer. What does eclipse prayer have? What's special about eclipse prayer? 5, 4.
Does it happen because of the eclipse of the moon?
But I want to know about the prayer, not why you're doing it.
Mm.
Maybe you can pray it only in congregation?
No. But someone has an answer here. Has in it 2 ruku' and 1 rak'ah. Eclipse prayer, you'll say Allahu Akbar with your intention, recite Al-Fatiha, then make ruku', then stand up and recite some more. Then make ruku' again, and then stand up and then make sujood. You can do that on your own or you can do it in congregation. And prayer of fear. Prayer of fear. What's special about prayer of fear? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Prayer of fear. Yani, it does take some effort to answer that question. It depends. Is the enemy in the direction of the Kaaba? Or the enemy is not in the direction of the Kaaba? Or is it a case of hand-to-hand combat? So if the enemy is in the direction of the Kaaba, then there's a special way to pray. One rank would bow with the Imam while the other rank is standing guard. If the enemy is not in the direction of the Kaaba, one group of Muslims is going to stand in the face of the enemy while the other group prays with the Imam. And then the Imam's going to wait while the 2 groups switch positions. Then those who are standing in the face of the enemy come and pray with the Imam, and those who are praying with the Imam will go and stand in the face of the enemy. So you'll review that, inshallah, if you need to. And if it's hand-to-hand combat, then you pray any way you're able to, riding or walking, facing the Qibla or not facing the Qibla. And this definition of prayer also includes the shortened prayer. Shortened prayer, which is going to be only for traveling. You're only going to shorten prayer for traveling, not for another reason. And other than that, what's some other prayers we didn't mention here? Give me one prayer we didn't mention here.
The one for
Praying for rain. Praying for rain.
Rain prayer, yes. There's another one too. What else we didn't mention here? I don't know Salatul Fatih.
Is it the duha prayer?
Well, other than that, something has something special in its format. The thing about all these ones that we mentioned here is that there's something particular or peculiar or unique about their format. Eid prayer, correct. Because Eid prayer has takbirs. So prostrations for thanks and recitation, there's no ruku'. You say your takbir and go right down into sujood. Funeral prayer, there's no bowing or prostration. Eclipse prayer has 2 bows in 1 rak'ah. Prayer of fear depends on the scenario. Shortened prayer, you know about that. And other than that, like Eid prayer and rain prayer, these prayers have conditions, which you might say also prerequisites, sharts or shurut, conditions or prerequisites. What is a condition? What is a condition?
It is not part of the salat, but one has to do it before.
Correct. It is something that's not a part of the salah itself, but you need to fulfill it before doing the prayer. And add to that, it needs to last throughout the prayer too. And the integral or the requisites, those are parts of the prayer. Without them, the prayer is invalid. So without the condition, the prayer is invalid, like wudu. Without the integral, the prayer is invalid, like Fatiha and bowing and prostrating. The difference is that the condition is not actually a part of the prayer, while the integral is a part of the prayer. And keep in mind here, condition and integral, what we mention here, those are actually universal definitions, not special to the prayer. How we have defined condition and integral here, remember that for all cases, for all worships and all dealings. And the prayer also has something that we're going to call it here segments. Segments repaired by prostration or forgetfulness. Ba'd. Segments repaired by prostration of forgetfulness. So there's some parts of the prayer, if you miss them, that's broad word there. So this issue of making sujood for forgetfulness has its own details. So I'm just trying to condense the talk here. There are some parts of the prayer, if you miss them, then you should do prostration of forgetfulness before you say the salam. And the prayer also has forms that are not repaired as such. They're not repaired like those segments are. The forms are like raising your hands when you say Allahu Akbar, and putting your hands, holding your left hand in your right hand between your chest and your navel, and some things like that. Sitting with your toes in a particular way. These forms, these hayat, if you miss them, you don't make prostration of forgetfulness. You just missed them. And then your prayer won't be perfect. If you want a perfect prayer, then do all the segments of your prayer and all the forms of your prayer. So according to what we're saying here, segment would be like first tashahhud and dua al-kunut and fajr prayer. And these prayers have invalidators. Yes, and these prayers have invalidators. All of that will be defined in their places. Prayer is the best deed after faith itself. What did the Prophet say, alayhi salatu wassalam? The Prophet said, Islam is testifying that no one is God but Allah, and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, and performing the prayer, and paying the zakah, and fasting Ramadan, and embarking on a mission to the house. So the first thing was what? The shahada. That's faith. That's belief. Second thing was what? The prayer. Prayer is the best deed after faith itself. Most important deed after believing. It is God's remembrance in what At-Tirmidhi narrates, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Ala unabbi'ukum bi khayri a'malikum. Should I not inform you of the best of your deeds? Wa azkaha 'inda malikikum. And they're purest, the purest of your deeds, to your owner. Wa arfa'iha fi darajatikum. And the most elevating of your status. وَخَيْرٌ لَكُمْ مِنْ إِنْفَاقِ الذَّهَبِ وَالْوَرِقِ. And better for you than spending gold and silver. وَخَيْرٌ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَنْ تَلْقَوْا عَدُوَّكُمْ فَتَضْرِبُوا أَعْنَاقَهُمْ وَيَضْرِبُوا أَعْنَاقَهُمْ. And better for you than to meet your enemy. Yani, than to encounter your enemy. You striking their necks, then you get the reward for killing that combatant. And they striking your necks, and then you get the reward of dying as a martyr. The Prophet said, alayhi salatu wassalam, should I tell you about the best of your deeds and what's better than all of these things? Qalu bala. They said, indeed. Qala dhikrullahi ta'ala. He said, the remembrance of God. Exalted is He. So what's this remembrance of God here? That's the prayer itself. The obligation of prayer. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in more than one hadith, fi kulli yawmin wa layla, every day and night, whether actual day and night or virtual, like the days of the one-eyed imposter, because the first day he comes out will be as long as a year. You have to pray the prayers of a year on that day, because that day is as long as a year. So those are virtual days, not actual days. It's actually one day, but it's as long as a year, and you're going to have to pray the prayers of a year on that one day. And then the second day will be as long as a month. And then the third day will be as long as a week. So you're going to have to pray the prayers of a month on the second day and the prayers of a week on the third day. And then the rest of the days will be regular days. So that's included in the Prophet saying about the prayer, fi kulli yawmin wa layla, every day and night. Because the Prophet said that in more than one hadith, alayhi salatu wassalam, there are only 5 daily prescribed prayers known by necessity. 5 daily prescribed prayers, prescribed here, al-maktubah, as-salawat al-maktubat, the prescribed prayers, the written prayers, the assigned prayers, known by necessity. That means all the Muslims know about these 5 prayers, the knowledgeable and the layman, as opposed to the witr prayer that the Hanafi said is mandatory, speculated obligation according to them. That's not a matter of consensus that you have to pray that prayer or else you'll be sinful. It's not a matter of consensus. So because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in more than one hadith, fi kulli yawmin wa layla, every day and night, about the prayer, whether actual day and night or virtual, like the days of the one-eyed imposter, there are only 5 daily prescribed prayers known by necessity, made obligatory on Mi'raj night. As you know, Allah Ta'ala first made it obligatory on that night for the nation of Muhammad to pray 50 prayers, 50, every day and night. And then that was reduced, you know the story. That was reduced to 5 and counted in numerous hadiths, those 5. Meaning, in numerous hadiths, it's mentioned that there are 5 prayers, khamsu salawat. Therefore, since this is the status of these prayers, they are known by necessity, their denier is a disbeliever, unless he were newly acquainted with Islam, and then he denied them out of his ignorance, which is still haram. He's not allowed to talk in ignorance, but he won't be deemed as a kafir. Rather, we will forbid him from this denial and we will teach him. The denier of these prayers is a disbeliever. So that's your default position for the denial of these prayers. Denying these prayers is blasphemy. That's default case. There's an exception to the rule. So the exception to the rule is not the rule. The rule is that it's blasphemy to deny these 5 prayers. There's an exception to this rule, which is the case of the new Muslim, or the one who's like a new Muslim. And that's different from their neglector. The neglector of these prayers is still a Muslim. He's still a believer, according to the correct saying. Correct saying is that the one who neglects prayer is still a believer. And the word neglect there, I don't have to say without an excuse, because that's what neglect implies. If I said the one who leaves them out, then I would have to say without an excuse. But if I choose the word neglect, then I don't have to say without an excuse. The neglector of these prayers is still a believer. That's the correct saying. Some scholars said the neglector of the prayers is a kafir. This is a weak saying. In fact, it's wrong. It's not just weak, it's wrong, actually. Not reliable. Don't take that saying. He's still a believer, though he's a major sinner. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, خمس صلوات كتبهن الله على العباد. There are 5 prayers that Allah ordained upon the slaves. من أتى بهن بتمامهن كان له عهد عند الله أن يدخله الجنة. Whoever performs them completely, yani perfectly, has a promise from Allah that He shall admit him into the garden. This means he prays all his prayers validly and on time. He has a promise from Allah that Allah shall admit him into the garden, and that means without torture. Whoever does not perform them completely does not have a promise from Allah to admit him into the garden. If Allah willed, He will admit him into the garden, and if He willed, He will punish him. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَأْتِ بِهِنَّ بِتَمَامِهِنَّ لَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ عَهْدٌ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَنْ يُدْخِلَهُ الْجَنَّةِ. And whoever does not perform them completely does not have a promise from Allah to admit him into the garden. That means without torture. إِنْ شَاءَ أَدْخَلَهُ الْجَنَّةِ. If He will admit him into the garden. وَإِنْ شَاءَ عَذَّبَهُ. And if He will punish him. So this part is the evidence that it's wrong saying to say the one who doesn't pray is a kafir. إِنْ شَاءَ أَدْخَلَهُ الْجَنَّةِ. If Allah willed, He will admit him into the garden. That means he must be a Muslim, because Allah will not admit a kafir into the garden. Had the neglector of the prayer been a kafir, then Allah would not admit him into the garden if he dies as a kafir. They are described as mafrudah, mandated, those 5 prayers, or maktuba, written or decreed or mandated, or the like. I said some other words too. Here is Ibn Abbas's interpretation of Surah Al-Rum, ayahs 17 and 18. فَسُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ حِينَ تُمْسُونَ وَحِينَ تُصْبِحُونَ وَلَهُ الْحَمْدُ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَعَشِيًّا وَحِينَ تُظْهِرُونَ. So far from imperfection is Allah when you enter into the night, containing Maghrib and Isha, and when you enter into the prayer time of dawn, and the praise is His in heavens and earth, in the early evening at Asr time, and when you enter into the noon, Dhuhr time. Meaning, Ibn Abbas said this ayah is signaling to all 5 prayers. Far from imperfection is Allah when you enter into the night, and when you enter into the dawn, and the praise is His in heavens and earth, and in the early evening, and when you enter into the noon. Therefore, witr prayer is neither mandatory, wajib, that's what the Hanafis would call it, a wajib, nor is it obligatory, a fard. It's not wajib or fard according to the Shafi'is. Wajib here is translated as mandatory, and fard is translated here as obligatory, and they mean the same thing. It's not wajib and it's not fard. Witr prayer is sunnah. And wajib and fard are the same, except in Hajj, in the chapter or the book of Hajj. As you know, wajib and fard are different in the book of Hajj only. We're talking Shafi'i school here, as opposed to the Hanafis. For the Hanafis, wajib and fard are not the same, consistently throughout the different chapters of fiqh. Wajib and fard don't mean the same according to them. In their terms, witr prayer is a speculated obligation. It's wajib. But they define wajib differently. They do mean, though, that if you don't pray it, you're sinful, according to them. But it's a speculated obligation. They're saying to you, the proof for this prayer being obligatory is disputable. It's not indisputable. If the proof of it were indisputable, the Hanafis say, then it would be fard. But the proof for it is disputable, and according to us, you do have to pray it or you'll be sinful, and we're going to call it wajib since we're recognizing that its proof is disputable. Disputable doesn't mean weak, just means someone else could offer a counter argument. As for the 5 prayers, no one can offer any counter argument for their being obligatory. So for the Hanafis, when something is wajib, if you don't do it, you're sinful. So that's common meaning for wajib between Hanafis and others. If you don't do it, you're sinful. But the difference is that the Hanafis are saying, when we call it wajib, we are acknowledging the fact that its proof is disputable. But when we say farud, the Hanafis will tell you, we're saying the proof for something we call farud is indisputable. The source of the obligation of the prayer is the verse in Al-Baqarah, wa aqimu salah, observe the prayer. The hadiths about it are extremely numerous, and the consensus about them being fard has been concluded. The consensus about these 5 prayers being fard has been concluded. Not wajib, because the Hanafis differ about what wajib means in the first place. So what's the consensus about the 5 prayers? The consensus about the 5 prayers is that they are fard. Any questions so far?
No shade.
Prayer is prayed to fulfill an obligation, or to catch a time, or to observe an occasion, or not. So prayer is prayed to fulfill an obligation, like any of the 5 prayers, or to catch a time. What's an example of a prayer prayed to catch a time, but not an obligatory one? Give me an example of a prayer that's prayed to catch a time, but not obligatory.
Duha prayer.
Correct. Salatul duha. So you want to pray to catch that time. Yani to catch the prayer in that time. Or to observe an occasion. What's an example of a prayer performed to observe an occasion? 5.
Eclipse prayer.
Could you?
Eclipse prayer. Correct. Or funeral prayer, for example. Yes, funeral prayer. And it says here, or not. Or not here means it's possible to perform a prayer. It's not obligatory, and it does not have a special time, and it does not have a special occasion. That prayer is called, anyone know? What do you call a prayer that's neither obligatory nor for catching a time and nor for observing an occasion? 5, 4.
Is it a recommended prayer?
But duha is a recommended prayer, so I need a different name.
Or are those the 17 prayers? The prayers before Fajr and after?
No, because those are associated with the obligatory prayers, meaning they have a special time. The rawatib prayers, their time is the time of the obligatory prayer that they come along with. So those have special time.
How about for thanking Allah to pray?
Not this one. Yani, I don't know if you might have an intention like that in the one I'm thinking, yani, the one I'm going to tell you. But it's not called that. 3, 2, 1. An-naflul mutlaq. An-naflul mutlaq. I'll type it out for you. An-nafl al-mutlaq. That means unrestricted voluntary prayer. Unrestricted voluntary prayer. And like we're going to say, that has 2 cases, because you can do it in the daytime, you can do it in the nighttime. So basically, what if you prayed dhuhr and you prayed the rawatib of dhuhr, the sunnah prayers that come along with dhuhr, and you want to keep praying, And then you can just keep praying, 2 by 2 by 2 by 2, and just keep going until your heart's content, as many as you want. It's unrestricted. And there's no reason for these, there's no special reason for these, and you're not doing it for the time that's in. It's not because of the time that's in that you're doing it. They're not obligatory, they're not for any special time, and they're not for any special occasion. 2 rak'ats by 2 rak'ats. And so one case is doing them in the daytime, and the other case is doing them in the nighttime. So you have your obligatory prayers, 5 obligatory prayers. You have your rawatib. Those are the voluntary prayers that come along with the obligatory prayers. So their time is the time of the obligatory prayers that they come along with. So Sunnatul Fajr, its time is Fajr time, and the rawatibs of Dhuhr, their time is at Dhuhr time, etc.
I have a question, Sheikh Khalid.
Yes.
What is the difference between rawatib and the sunnat al-mu'akkada?
Sunnah mu'akkada is emphasized sunnah. That's a sunnah that the Prophet never left out, whether traveling or residing. That's its definition. Something that the sunnah, it's a sunnah, a voluntary worship that the Prophet never left out, whether traveling or residing. That's the definition. The rawatibs are not all mu'akkada. Some of them are. And there are some sunnat mu'akkadats that are not rawatib. So that's the difference between them. Is that clear?
Yes, barakallahu fikum.
Wa fikum. For the occasion of a Muslim's death, funeral prayer is a communal obligation. This is mentioned here because the only obligatory prayers are the 5 prayers, except this one. This one has the status of a communal obligation. So the 5 prayers are obligatory, and the funeral prayer is obligatory, but as a communal obligation. So if some Muslims do the funeral prayer, then you're allowed to skip it. Like after Jumu'ah, they might stand to do a funeral prayer. You can leave if you want to because someone else is doing it. But someone has to do it, so it's a communal obligation. Unless only a single individual knew of the dead, then it is a personal obligation. You were with a Muslim, just the 2 of you out somewhere, and he died. Now you're going to have to be the one, if you don't go tell anyone, you're going to have to be the one to wash him, shroud him, pray for him, and bury him as a personal obligation. If you want to share that obligation, you need to go and tell someone, hey, Fulan died. Now it's personal. Now it's communal obligation. If either one of you do it, it's fulfilled. If neither of you do it, you're both sinful. And anything else is voluntary, as proven by Al-Bukhari's hadith of the Bedouin with the unkempt hair. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, La illa an tatawwa'. No others are obligatory. He's answering that man's question. No other prayers are obligatory. There is nothing else unless you volunteer. So this is evidence for the Shafi'is that witr prayer is not wajib. However, some voluntary prayers are emphatic. That's what you just asked me about Hajjah. Sunnah mu'akkada, an emphatic voluntary worship, like duha time and tahajjud. Tahajjud is praying the sunnah prayers at nighttime after Isha. 6 of those should be prayed in congregation. 6 of these emphatic voluntary prayers should be prayed in congregation. The 2 holiday prayers, yani Eid, Salatul Eid, so the Eid prayer for Eid al-Fitr, that's one coming up in a few days, and Eid al-Adha in the Hajj season, those are voluntary prayers that should be prayed in congregation. And the solar and lunar eclipse prayers, so that's 4. And the rain prayer, and that is their hierarchy. So out of these 6, 5 of them have this ranking. The Eid prayers, then the eclipse prayers, and then the rain prayer. That's their hierarchy. And the nightly Ramadan prayers, but what's the rank of the nightly Ramadan prayers compared to these? I don't know. You can ask. Is the nightly Ramadan prayers better than any of these? I don't know. What's the rank of this prayer compared to these 5? So out of these 5, the best are the Eid prayers, and then the eclipse prayers, and then the rain prayer. And these 5 are prayed in congregation, and there's another Sunnah prayer prayed in congregation, the nightly Ramadan prayers. And each is coming in its place. Praying any prayer in a masjid, not a musalla, before sitting. Praying any prayer in a masjid before sitting fulfills the recommendation of Tahiyyatul Masjid, saluting the mosque. That's a sunnah, to pray before sitting. When you enter a masjid, a real masjid, not a musalla, even without that specific intention, meaning you can enter the masjid and then pray 2 rak'ats with the intention of saluting the mosque or saluting the masjid. So you'll say Allahu Akbar, and in your heart you'll be saying, now I salute the masjid, for example, and then you'll pray 2 rak'ats. Or you enter the masjid, and before you sit down, you pray your Fajr prayer that you didn't pray in the morning, or you pray the prayer that's in Dhuhr prayer or whatever prayer is in. Just by praying without sitting first, you achieve the sunnah of saluting the masjid. And the unrestricted voluntary prayers of the night are better than those of the day, like we already said. Wallahu a'lam. Allah knows best. We'll stop there. Yes, please.
Under what category it falls, Qiyamul Layl?
Qiyamul Layl for Ramadan?
Yes, please.
That's the nightly Ramadan prayers. So that's an emphatic voluntary prayer that's prayed in congregation.
So here I have some misunderstanding. Usually you can pray throughout the year, Qiyamul Layl, right? The third part of the night that you are praying.
But that's not Ramadan though.
Yeah, when it's not Ramadan.
Yes, so you can pray during not Ramadan, but it's not going to be the intention of Qiyam Ramadan.
This one is Qiyamul Ramadan.
Yes.
The other one is Qiyamul Layl.
Yes.
I never understood that one because I'm just now hearing the Musalla because I didn't have the opportunity to pray that kind. Barakallahu fikum. It's clear. Okay, got it.
Any other question?
One more.
Yes.
So during the Ramadan, as soon as they pray Isha, they pray the 2 rak'ah of Sunnah, and then they are praying, that is, they call it Qiyamul Ramadan. The 2 rak'ah.
That's their intention.
Their intention, that's what they are making. So those who prayed, can they pray also Qiyamul Layl on the third part of the night? Or you can omit it during the Ramadan? Because I got confused. Or if you don't pray that the Ramadan, Qiyamul Ramadan, that you can pray by yourself, Qiyamul Layl.
Well, you can pray Qiyam Ramadan by yourself too.
Yeah, I know, but if you have a habit of Qiyamul Layl to pray on the third part of the night during Ramadan, so if you pray Qiyamul Ramadan, you skip Qiyamul Layl, or how does it work between these two?
I haven't heard about this. I don't know. But what I can tell you is just to remind you of the hadith that you know. وَلِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. Each person has what he intended. Yeah. So if he intended Qiyam Ramadan, it's going to be Qiyam Ramadan. And if he intended other than Qiyam Ramadan, it will be other than Qiyam Ramadan.
So the Qiyam al-Layl is the one on the third part of the night, correct?
Qiyam al-Layl, so which is tahajjud.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be in the last third only.
The
tahajjud is after praying Isha prayer.
You can do it anytime.
Yeah.
After Isha. Okay, barakallah fikum.
Ameen wa fikum. But they differed about whether you need to sleep first or not for it to be tahajjud.
Yeah, because Sheikh Samir explained, but it's hard to catch everything.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hajj, may I ask what so if you're standing up praying during Ramadan for the woman at home, what is her intention if she's making up prayers?
Her intention is whatever it is she wants to pray.
Okay.
What does she want to pray?
Okay, so this term Qiyam al-Layl is not just to be placed anywhere in Ramadan, whether you're at home or praying in congregation.
Yeah.
For example, one imam made the intention in congregation to pray Qiyam al-Layl. And there's another term that the imam uses to pray is it the Tarawih?
Tarawih.
For Ramadan?
Yes.
That's the Tarawih. Okay.
Some said Tarawih has to be 20 rakats, not more or less.
Barakallahu bikum Sheikh. Tarawih. Some say 20 and not less. 20 rakats and not less. Is that what I understood?
Yeah, not more or less.
Some say 20 rakats, not more or less. Okay. And if this Qiyam al-Layl, any judgment with that?
If it's so if you were talking about the night prayers of Ramadan, if you want,
Yes.
call them Qiyam Ramadan.
Please explain.
Because you want to pray the night prayers of Ramadan. Because it's Ramadan. So you're going to make that intention in particular. If you just say Qiyam Layl without the intention of praying because it's Ramadan, then you're going to be praying other than Qiyam Ramadan.
Oh, I noticed you said is after praying Salatul Isha Qiyam al-Layl. Could you clarify Qiyam al-Layl? What is it? Other than that, is after praying Salatul Isha. Is it specific to Ramadan?
No, Qiyam Ramadan, that's what I'm saying. If you want Qiyam Ramadan,
yes,
you say Qiyam Ramadan, because that's going to be for Ramadan.
You
say Qiyam Layl, that's not special to Ramadan. Qiyam Layl means night prayers. So night prayers is not special to Ramadan. If you say Qiyam Ramadan, then it's special for Ramadan.
Okay, so you can do Qiyam al-Layl for any time of the year after Isha. With that intention, I'm asking.
Qiyam Layl doesn't have any particular time of the year. It's for the nighttime.
Okay. So the woman who is praying or the person who is praying during Ramadan, making up prayers, then their intention is for the prayers they're making up. It won't be for Qiyam al-Ramadan, even though it's standing up in the night.
Her intention, her prayer is going to be whatever is her intention. The Prophet said, every person has what he intended. So whatever it was she intended, that's what she's praying.
Okay.
So if you want to pray prayers, because it's Ramadan, you're going to say, now I pray Qiyam Ramadan. That's your intention.
So
if you're just praying because it's nighttime, not because it's Ramadan, then you're going to say, now I pray Qiyam Layl. Then you're going to be praying because it's nighttime, not because it's Ramadan.
Yes.
Your intention makes the difference. What is the intention? The scholar said the intention distinguishes one deed from the other and distinguishes the different levels of deeds. The intention distinguishes a habit from a worship, and it distinguishes the different worships from each other. what might be confusing for someone that they look the same and they're both being done at night. So someone might say, what's the difference? Difference is one is in observance of Ramadan. One is in observance of the nighttime. So that's two different things.
So can one say they have the intention for Qiyam Ramadan and making up their obligatory prayer?
No, because Qiyam Ramadan is not obligatory.
Oh, I see. I see they're both separate worships.
Qiyam Ramadan is Sunnah prayer that you're going to pray at night in Ramadan.
I see.
And if you want to do 20 in particular, you can make the intention for Taraweeh.
In Ramadan.
In Ramadan.
Yes. Understood. Thank you so much. Alhamdulillah. Mubarak. Thank you.
You're welcome. Barakallahu feekum. The other question?
Sheikh Ra'id,
Yes.
when you mentioned you said the Eid prayer, then the eclipse, then the rain in that order. And then there were two more. You said 5 altogether. What were the other 2?
No. Eid prayer, that's 2. Rain, eclipse prayer, that's 2. And rain prayer, that's 1. So that's 5.
5. Okay. I got it. Barakallahu fi. Sorry for the music. I'm at the gym. Barakallahu fikum.
Allah yahfadukum.
How do you
As for, is it possible to
Can you
pray?
mute me, Sheikh Ra'id? I don't know what I pressed.
Okay.
Thank you.
If is it possible to pray night prayer before praying Isha prayer? We'll ask, inshallah.
How do you get these documents? The one you have now on the screen?
Huh?
Are we getting
the document? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Yeah, I already posted it. If you can see in the chat, I posted it at the beginning of the lesson. Sorry, I muted you while you were speaking. That was an accident.
Sheikh, what is a night prayer before the Isha prayer?
Well,
you just mentioned.
Night prayer means you're making the intention to pray 2 rakats at night.
Before the Isha prayer?
I said if that can be done, we'll ask.
Oh, okay.
Because it's the Isha time, Yani. What if you wanted to pray Isha at 2 in the morning, or at what they call the morning? What if you wanted to pray Isha at 2 a.m. and right now it's only 10? And you make the intention for Qiyam Layl and pray night prayers. It's called night prayers before you pray Isha. We'll ask about it. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك